This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm somewhat more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill. This morning, we interviewed Chris Prefontaine from Smart Real Estate Coach. This guy's got it all going on. He's had experience as a builder, as a brokerage, and he really focuses now on creative deal structuring and his teaching. And there's so much to learn in this episode. It was one of my favorite that we've done. Bill, what'd you think?
Yeah, and we all learn from our experiences, and Chris certainly has. He's made an ironclad business going forward based on what he learned in that 2008 area. And the other thing that I really appreciate, which he stressed on, was going from being a solopreneur to scaling your business.
A lot of good info on how to scale that who, not how, the E-Myth. On top of all of that, one of my favorite things from this interview was Chris seems like just a good guy. He's the kind of guy you want to grab a beer with, go to a ball game with. And in this industry of real estate investing, we know you can build wealth. We've talked about that. We've proved that. It's not questioned. But there is often an ethical, moral dilemma of being a landlord, raising rents, and it's something that we face every day. The way he structures his deal is a win-win-win with every party, and he seems to not have any of those issues. So if that's something that you struggle with in this industry, this is a great one to listen to.
Yeah, what Chris is focusing on right now, he's eliminated property management entirely. So you got to listen.
That sounds like a dream to me.
Yeah.
Chris Prefontaine, thank you for being here this morning. Really excited for this podcast. This is a good one. We're going to get right into it. Tell us how you got into the real estate industry.
Well, I don't want to. It's 31 years coming up in September. So without putting everybody to sleep, I'll give you kind of high points and you guys can go back and unpack any piece you want. I'm an open book. But I started back around 91-ish doing some home building. I was never a builder, but I teamed up with a builder and we did some cool things and built homes on other people's lots and everybody got paid at the end. It was literally doing terms and I didn't even know what it was in my 20s. After that, I bought a Realty Executive Franchise. I was never a broker, but we did that route with one goal in mind, to sell it. And everybody said, you can't sell brokerage. We nothing to sell. I sold it to Coldwell Banker in 2000. Then the next little run was up to the crash. And I did my own investments, coached people throughout U.S. and Canada. And then the lovely debacle, as they call it, of 08 happened. And I got my brains beat in financially, mentally, every other way, and dug out of that. And when I came out of it, and there's a reason I brought you through that. I specifically almost didn't get back in real estate. It's how spent I was and beat up. But what I said was, all right, what would be the rules, so to speak, of the protocol if we were to do this again? And we redesigned, re-engineered the whole business to what it is today. So if you fast forward to today, it's myself, my son-in-law, Zach, my son, Nick. My daughter has two great grandkids now, so she's chilling out, but she used to be with us, and then a great team. And we buy real estate on terms, meaning owner financing, lease purchase, and sub 2 existing financing in New England. And then the coaching entity, Smart Real Estate Coach, goes out and does that exact same thing and coaches students. But I say that same thing, meaning we don't sell stuff and go good luck. There's too much of that junk out there. What we do is we do deals with students in the field and we rev share with them. There's no better way to learn. So that's kind of the two things that we do. So we're in the trenches every day and we go teach that at the same exact time. So we're always staying current, which I think is super important. So that was 31 years in about 3 minutes at that.
Well, that's beautiful. You're practicing what you're preaching with your students. You're getting out there with them after you show them the way. Can help to notice that 31 years. All right, I'm not quite as long as 31 years. I'm well into 25 plus years. So
Good.
I can appreciate the experiences that we've had through different market cycles. The big one, as you mentioned, is 2008. And I think we all learned from that when we experienced it. I don't see the same characteristics this time around. I don't think we ever do. I have that uncertainty because I only dealt with the 2008, which was the big one. But also noticing what you said on buying real estate on terms, seller financing. At this point in time, is your strategy just that, dealing with sellers and avoiding banks?
Yeah, we don't. I haven't dealt with banks since the crash by choice. So we will put a homeowner agreement with that owner financing, or when I said sub two, if anyone's not familiar with that in your listener tribe, it means I'm buying a property and the loan's staying in the seller's name, but I'm taking title. But those two things, Bill, you just brought up, owner financing by nature, we go after free and clear properties. They have no mortgage, so they're a different makeup than the sub two who's probably under financial stress, going just take my I need relief, take my home. Two entirely different avatars, so to speak. I love them both, but they're two entirely different avatars. My building that I'm sitting in right now is we live on an island, a 3-town island. It's called the Quinnipiac Island. Very active real estate. Even when things aren't good, it's decent around here because there's water everywhere. Well, I bought this on owner financing. It was free and clear. He did not want a conventional sale. There's people like that are financially well off, and they go, I don't want to get cashed out. So for state reasons, tax reasons, he wanted owner financing. I structured an amazing 20-year deal here. Can you imagine? Well, you guys know, just going through commercial underwriting, it's awful. So I just choose not to do that anymore. Not to mention, I signed my name personally with a crash and had all kinds of banks. It's not fun. So I don't do that. I don't sign personally on anything anymore, and nor do our students.
I do personally have a lot of fun with commercial underwriting, but I might be weird in that way. But I also love the creative deal structure, and that stuff's so exciting. And there's so much creativity in this space where you can put stuff together however you want to. And I think a lot of people that are new to the industry almost don't believe that you can buy a property
Agreed.
without a bank and without your own money. And if you listen to the Pace Morbies and Frank Lamarck, someone we had on our show, they're so good at explaining how they do it. Can you give us a little insight, the listeners, on how you approach someone trying to acquire a property with no money and no bank loan?
Yeah, and then so before I say that, very good question, Stephen. There's 3 buckets, right, so to speak. When I'm listening, let's say Bill's my seller. When I'm listening to Bill, I'm doing 2 things. I want to find out where his pain or his goal that he can't otherwise accomplish conventionally. In the case of my building, he didn't have pain. So I want to hear that. Then if I think I can solve it, usually we can, then I just want to know what's going to fit best. If he's free and clear, I'm going to automatically go to owner financing, and I'll talk about script in a minute. If they need immediate relief, there isn't really no discussion. It's I'm going to buy your. Here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to buy your house, and the loan's going to stay in your name. Are you going to be okay with that? That's it. And usually if they're in arrears or something, then we have to band-aid that. It makes the conversation even easier. The lease purchase, or other than Texas, what we call the sandwich lease, is super prevalent in our community as well. And that just is for someone that has some debt, might have some equity there, but just can't get their full price and doesn't want to transfer title. So one of those buckets are gonna allow us to move forward. Now, as far as sort of script, or what do we say and how do we do it? We have virtual assistants that will call the leads first. And they will simply look for the people that sort of like, yeah, I'm open, or yeah, I have someone call me. So we're not wasting a ton of time. Once we speak to them, we hear what I said for that example of I want to hear their pain or their goal. All I'm looking for is this. I would ask Bill, if we were to get him to his price, then is he open to getting his equity over time if he has some? Or does he need that to go buy a house now for his family? That's really the only question I have. And if he needs it now to go buy a house for his family, I then simply ask, I get that. Like 99% of people I buy from would rather have full price, all cash. I will move on. But reality is right now, in the last, 120 days, you've had tens of thousands of buyers, get kicked to the sidelines. They can't buy a house they thought they could 4 months ago. So now sellers are going to stop feeling this. So then my next question is, okay, I get it, but what if it doesn't sell? What's your plan B? And if their plan B is I need to talk with you, great. If their plan B is I would just stay here, then they're not motivated, right? They're just tinkering. So long answer. I hope that helped. And if not, I can go back to any piece of that.
No, that helps a lot. It explains so much. You have some of those owners that don't want to pay that tax liability. They don't want to go through that conventional deal.
Right.
And you're able to make a deal with them because you're taking over an asset that they no longer want to manage or focus on, distract themselves with. So they're complacent with you sending them their check every month, and it's just part of their estate. The other scenario you mentioned was that subject to, and those 3 points where ultimately you're solving problems, and we've heard that many times too. We
Right.
look for deals by solving the previous owner's problems. I'm selling a 16 unit that I own right now, and I've had a gentleman come up to me looking to do that subject to. It doesn't excite me so much because I'm still very active. I can just simply hire a property manager.
Agree.
And the way that he explained it to me was I deed over the property to him. The bank loan stays in my name. Do the banks have any issues with this when you're doing these deals? Do you have to get them involved in the conversation? What does that look like?
It's the biggest question we get, Bill, because people get worried about the due on sale clause, right? So I have a few comments. Now, please, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, but here's been my experience for 30 years. There is a due on sale clause on most loans. I'll talk about the VA loan in a second. But two things I'll say about that. One, in my experience, I've never been foreclosed on because we pay the bill. If you take it, you morally and ethically go into contract with someone, you do what you say you're going to do, and you pay the bill. If you don't, you're going to have a headache. You're going to get foreclosed on anyway. It's like if you don't pay any mortgage. Secondly, the Garmin St. Germain Act of I think it was 1982, could be off on the year, but the fact is that act was put together to have families, be able to transfer property without triggering the due on sale. So if Steve was a family member, I could deed it to him and not trigger due on sale. Okay, so what we do, and again, this is not legal advice, this is what we do with our attorneys. We place the property. If Bill lives at 123 Yellow Street, I'm going to put the property into a land trust that's called the 123 Yellow Street Bill Family Trust. I'll use Bill's last name. We're going to title it that way. Now, I'm not saying that's a fail-safe. I'm saying that's how we do it. Lastly, there's what's called a mirror wrap, without getting too crazy here. But in a VA loan, it's written in the language that they can transfer the property. And a mirror wrap is just wrap mortgage is placed on that property with a sub 2 that mirrors the exact amount due, monthly, interest rate, everything with a VA loan. So when people say, "Oh, I got a VA," and they're not sure they can do it, no, not only can they do it, you're allowed to do it. So again, long answer, but I think we hit 2 or 3 things there, Bill, that you wanted.
So many topics I want to discuss right now. It's all really exciting stuff. This is a deep rabbit hole you can keep going into. Have you worked with a due on sale clause insurance before? I heard that at one podcast, and I've tried looking into it. I haven't really found anything. Where it seems like you pay a company a couple $100s, and then if the bank does for some reason act on that due on sale, they'll take over the loan for the bank.
I just myself also, Steve, my son-in-law is super active on Clubhouse. And he met 2
Yep.
people in Clubhouse that's all they do, and they do sub 2s. So he's literally, as we speak, looking into it. Now, in the meantime, your own sort of insurance is have a good attorney that's done it over and over and over again. Because hypothetically, right, if someone did come to us and start knocking on the door, could I go to the land trust, change the beneficiary, add the seller back on the deed? There's all kinds of things you can do with a good attorney to circumvent that 100% moral, ethical, and legal the right way. Now, I like the idea of the insurance, so I don't have the right answer for that yet. But yes, I also just recently heard that. So I said, well, let's look into it. I'm not averse to it.
The reason I'm looking into it is I got my first investment a little over a year ago. It was an FHA loan duplex, and it had one of those 2.5% loans because I timed it at a good timing. I didn't know any better. I was new
Yeah.
to the industry. And now I'm at the point where I want to transfer that to an LLC as I'm getting these properties out of my name, and I don't want to get rid of that loan. So I'm looking for ways to execute that.
Yeah, and if you're doing it within your own, back to the Garmin St. Germain Act, if you're doing it for estate planning reasons and other, you're protected by that, I'm pretty sure, but you can double check that with your attorney. Yeah.
Good to know.
And you just brought up a really good point, though, actually. Right now, I'm screaming this to our community. You've got loans out there. We just did one at 4.1. You have loans out there that are nice low interest rates. Sadly, with the run up in values up to COVID, You have a 9-year run there roughly that people gained equity, but they can't hang on to it. We're grabbing properties that people just sadly can't hang on to it. If they get foreclosed, they're going to be screwed up with their credit for a lot of years. If they let us buy it, their credit's going to be all by itself, sort of repaired and on the mend in 6 or so months. So you're buying properties when rates are 6-ish for 3%, hypothetically, or 4%. Well, in my book, that's pretty cool. So that's what we're doing now, is a real big focus on that, and then longer term owner financing deals. So any uncertainty in the market, I don't really care. I mean, my building's 20 years. I don't care what the market does in the next 10 years.
And as you build this portfolio on these creative financing deals, is your business model buy and hold over? You just mentioned 20 years, or do you still look at each asset each year periodically and say, okay, this one stays in the portfolio, this one will sell? What does that look like?
Yeah, good question, Bill. So 90 to 95% of our exits are through a rent-own model. Now, I want to put a big, 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 bold explanation point on this piece here. There are, and I'm sure you guys have had some on your podcast without any names. There are people that have been on, I've heard them live and I've heard them on YouTube that say, teachers, educators, mentors that say, yeah, you can do the rent to own program. And when the buyer comes in, who cares if they cash out, because you collect another deposit and you do it again if they default. It might be okay in their legal documents, but that just stinks morally and ethically. So my son Nick is our buyer specialist. Before a buyer can be accepted into one of our homes, they got to be a buyer, not a wannabe renter, because that's going to be a default. And that's sad. You're not setting them up to win. So we set them up to win by getting them pre-qualified, except for knowing what their headache is. If their headache's credit, we overlook that and get a plan to get them mortgage ready. If they pass that smell test and they would adhere to the mortgage ready plan, they get put in the home. So they're true buyers. You have about depending on whose stat you read, 200,000%, increase in entrepreneurship since COVID. They're leaving the JOB, right? Well, they go get a loan. They're a good buyer. They can't get a loan. And with most banks, they need 2 years seasoning. Those are great rent-to-own buyers. So that's our model. And the reason I said 90 to 95%, Bill, is this. We're doing one right now. I love taking a home. We had it sub 2. We had a rent-to-own buyer in there. We said to her, she went for her law degree. She's a lawyer now. We said to her, hey, if you can get your deposit up to 20% over time, no hurry. And if you're current on your payments to us for the next year, we will look at owner financing you. So we take a sub 2 building we own, a single family, and we owner finance her. I just looked at the amortization schedule. It's crazy. So we take our 3 payday system that we have trademarked, and we just added a 4th payday and pushed the deal out 20 years. So to your question, some are 3, 5, 6 year cash outs. Some are 20 years. And some we do hold and maybe just rent if it's a 4 or a 6 or a house we want to keep. Most of them are rent own.
It sounds like you're really helping people while building wealth and doing it all with your family. It's really cool, really inspirational. On a less wholesome note, taking one step back in your story, going back to the '08 crash, I think there's always a lot of learning whenever someone brings that up.
Yeah.
Especially people my age who didn't go through that event and we're trying to prepare for the next either crash or market cycle, whatever you want to call it. Can you give us a little insight into what happened and how you learned from that?
Yeah, I had about 23 some odd properties, commercial, residential, some multi units that we were converting to condominiums that were selling like hotcakes back then. So you buy a 6 unit and you just turn them into condos, not a hard process, and sell them off. So what happened was when I remember like it was yesterday, I opened my book this way, February of '08. Like I remember like it was yesterday, and it was like a light switch got thrown. And any projects in the works, commercial, all that, you're not getting financing on them. And then we had one project in Providence, Rhode Island. It was a 6 unit. We sold 2 or maybe 3. I'm forgetting now, but it was 2 or 3 condos at like 172 grand. So just to give you some context, we bought the building for like back then, I don't know, 400 grand. Did a little bit of work, maybe spent 100. And we're selling these things off for 170 something grand, like nothing. Well, 3 sold or 2, whatever the number was. Then we had the remaining 3 or 4. The value dropped by 2/3. I couldn't get 52 grand for these things. So what do you think the bank did? They came knocking, right? I signed personally. So and I could give you 10 more of those horror stories, but the lesson is do not sign personally on bank debt. There's no reason to, with very few exceptions, personal homes, building that you always love, whatever. But by and large, if people say to me, I'm signing personally, I say, you're going to create a headache for you and your family. At some point in your life, you're going to create a headache because you can't help it. The banks don't care who you are. They're coming knocking if something happens. So number one is don't sign personally. Number two is when you do buy on terms, because once you learn the skill, you can do it on your own properties or whatever you want. When you do, just make sure you have the right, in our case, agreements, dream team, legal team, so that you can structure these deals to be either long-term or the ability to pivot to long-term if the market pivots on you. And that's just smart recession-resistant business, not proof. I don't think anything's proof, but recession-resistant business model.
Well, it's proof for you. So many of us, or all of us, learn by experience. So you dealt with that pain in 2008, and you ultimately had to come up with a solution how you can prevent that from happening again. So no, that
Right.
that, that makes perfect sense, and you're teaching people how to do that based on your success over the last 10, 12 years since that time. Do you specifically just stay in that Rhode Island water type market? Do you look for whatever deal actually has value, whether it be a single family or a 50 unit? What's your criteria?
A couple things. Rhode Island was too small for us back around 2014, so we expanded to Connecticut and Mass. Now about 60% of our properties are Connecticut. So no, just the Quinnipiac Island here is tough. It's tough to get property, but we go all through those three states. And then and then I'll talk about the type, because we have the students all over the country, literally from West Coast to East Coast, we're doing deals in a lot of states, not every yet, but a lot of states, which really gives us, we're like a microcosm of society, the Wicked Smart community is. So it's really cool because as the market shifts, get the feedback like almost instant on our weekly Zoom calls. So I get the sense of what's going on. As soon as interest rates went up, for example, the phone started ringing more from sellers, right? They need help now again. As far as the types, mostly Bill single family. I just, when someone's new, especially, I don't want the shiny object syndrome to sneak in, and it can real easy in real estate.
Yeah.
So big time. So we do single families. However, I mentioned a 4 and a 6 earlier. I had this building. Once you learn the skill set, way before the three of us were around, 1600s to be exact, before banking existed in New York City. If you read the new Vanderbilt book, what's his name wrote it? Anderson Cooper wrote it about his family. He talks about owner financing and lease purchase in New York City in the 1600s. So this isn't new. So once you learn the skill set, you can do it with a boat, a plane, a car, and any type of property that you want, to answer it more broadly.
Really valuable skill set to have, obviously. You mentioned your Wicked Smart community and your books, and I want to say thank you for sending us a care package before we recorded this.
You bet.
When we first got that, I saw the Wicked Smart tagline. I thought either this guy is from New England or he's a huge Goodwill Hunting fan. You're from New England, might be a little bit of both.
A
I
little bit of both,
haven't
but I am from
gotten
New England.
Okay, I haven't gotten into the books yet. I actually took it with me on a July 4th trip, planning to start it, and ended up hitting golf balls into a lake instead. That's a whole nother story. But looking forward to reading them soon. I hope you can plug those, and we can put the link in the description after this episode.
Sure.
But when I'm looking over this book, I see that on one, you have 24 investors who give their thoughts in the book. Another one, there's 5 or 7 investors who give their thoughts. You mentioned having your virtual assistants who are the ones initially making contact with these different sellers. And it seems like you're a very good advocate of the who, not how approach. Is that something that you try to implement in your business?
Most certainly. System wise, way before this business, I've always been like, I always say McDonald's-ize it, right? Make sure it's a systematized thing. And as far as growing a team, I mean, depending on your goals, you're going to put people on the bus that can scale your biz or take the workload off you if you want to move from solopreneur to a business, right? Let me say something about that, not to get too far off the tangent, but for the listeners, I don't want to water down $1 million business, but let me give you a metric. I think that through the years after the crash, I didn't realize this, I was just a solopreneur. And until you realize that that's just a lot of muscling. Like, you can get to $1 million in most niches in real estate. I won't say easy, but simply by muscling it out, working harder, doing more emails, doing more, work harder. You can't go past $1 million in most niches without sort of what you asked about, the who, not how, the systems, the scaling. Like, you need coaching outside of how do I do a deal. Super, super important. And so if your goal is to just be a solopreneur and do deals and feels like more of a job, okay. But if you want to scale a business and scale it with what I call the 3 payday system, you've got to do that with a little bit of a team eventually. So I diverted a little bit from you. What was
Yeah,
that?
Stephen knows I have thoughts on that. I had been that solopreneur for so long. Yeah, I had employees. I was running a property management company with we owned 250 units for from probably 2006 to 2018, 2019, and along that way, as I'm trying to McDonaldize it, as you had mentioned, build that system where the employees can run that business. But I always continued to stick my nose into the business and screw that up. And what I realized along the way, as you had mentioned, with that model for 10, 12 years, I was around that 200 to 250 units. And based on that business model, I didn't even have to be conscious of it. That was my ceiling. I was not going to be able to get any bigger until I'm able to build that team to scale the business.
Right.
And just looking at my notes from early in this conversation, I'm wondering if I can go back with you 31 years ago. You mentioned that you got into home building and you weren't a home builder. So same concept where 31 years ago you wanted to get into this industry, but you relied on someone else, to get you involved.
Yeah. So, Bill, you remember this name, and I know Stephen probably won't, but you remember Earl Nightingale, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So around 1990, I was driving to my father had a welding business. So we had branches in New England. I was driving to one of them, and my cassette player, Dating Me Again, it was Earl Nightingale. Earl talked about a gentleman during the Depression who things were bad, and he would go to landowners, sorry, and he'd ask them for permission to put a sign on their lot to sell their lot. And so I got an idea then. That's that trip that I thought, wait a minute. So if I can go do that same thing, but instead of selling the lot, I'll get with a builder and package a finished package. Because some people, homeowners, especially first time buyers, don't know, they don't know how to build. They don't want to know how to build. They just want a finished package and they'd like a new home. So we went to the homeowner and said, look, we'll buy your lot for your price, 50 grand, let's say it was. But you got to wait till the end of the house is built. And then we said to all the suppliers, you got to wait until the home's built to get paid. And so everyone waited to get paid until the very end. And we pre-sold the home and only built it when we had the buyer with 10% down. So that was our model then. It worked because in the early 90s, it was slow. I don't think that would work now. And I was too naive in my 20s to not go to suppliers and ask them this. I think some of them laughed and then did it. So then to build that business, yes, the gentleman I teamed up with was a builder. So he ran the whole field stuff. I ran the office, and eventually we built a little team that could offset some of our time just with admin. But we built like 50 homes a year doing that. That was a pretty cool model. Again, I didn't know what the heck I was doing then. I just thought, oh, that's a cool idea. And we went and ran with it.
What I hear is you're again creatively structuring deals, and it seems like that's your strong point and your big superpower here. After that, you got into what you said was what you sold to a brokerage, but you said it never really was a brokerage. How did that transition happen?
Well, I was never a broker. So after the building business, my partner and I split up, and I said, oh, I'll go take the test. And I got my license, and I had to do what I'll call it an apprenticeship. But, you got to be under a broker for a certain time. I think it was a year back then. So I was in Remax, and then I did the same as I tell people do now. I hooked up with a coach. I said, who's selling 100 homes a year? Because my broker owner's telling me I can do like a dozen. I wanted to throw up. Like a dozen homes wasn't going to get me excited. So I said, who's doing 100? I found a broker doing 100. I asked her who her coach was. Back in the day, it was Mike Ferry. So I followed Mike. I was in his one-on-one program when he first started it. And in my fourth year, I got to 100 homes. But in doing that, I also put some really good productive agents in my brokerage, about 14 of them. We kept it tight. You had to have a minimum or you get kicked out. Like, it was that strict. And then I sold it to Coldwell Banker because we were doing so much. My team was doing 100. Each of my agents probably 20 to 50. They were all producers. So I sold to them. Now, in hindsight, it wasn't a huge deal, but it was like $250,000. And for me, at that time, in 90, 91-ish. I think it was January of 90, maybe. That was a big deal. 2000 rather. That was a big deal. So that was a good experience for me. And everyone said, you can't sell a brokerage. You can't do that. Well, I had to pay the franchise like $7,000 to give it back to them. And then I sold my company to the co-op banker. That's how it worked.
Yeah, just like any business, you have a great book of work. You got the franchise out of the way, and the book of work still existed, and there's a buyer to gobble up your book of work, which is a Coldwell Banker who's always growing their franchise.
Right.
As you're coaching, so you go from the home building to Realty Executives, and you seem to have been coaching for quite a period of time now. Are you going to have different students at different levels? I know you mentioned the shiny object,
Yeah.
where when someone new comes along, you might want to start them off with the single families. Do you have any students that have graduated past that and now they're not distracting themselves with single families? They're focused on large multifamily?
Most of our students, this is a good topic. Most of our students don't go large multifamily because by nature of what we do, a lot of them don't want to go ask for money, raise money, syndicate, any of that. It's not good, bad, or ugly, just what they do. Now, what do we do sort of in that realm, Bill, as far as graduating? All the students go through the same 90-day curriculum, so they get like our vernacular base. Okay, here it is, guys. Here's what you got to know. And then depending on what level they picked after that, will depend how aggressive they are. The highest level coaching program we have, I coach. There's about 23 of them in that program right now, and they're all the most serious and committed. So what do I do with them when they sort of graduate? And graduate to me is like you get past your first 5 or 6 deals. And again, just for context, these deals, our 3 payday system averages like for a family company, like 78 grand a deal. For our students all around the country, so it's a good average. They range a low of 45,000 in some very low end areas in Arizona to 250,000 and above in some areas like Miami and Washington, D.C. So when I say 5 or 6 deals, there's significant profit in these deals. Well, when they get to like 5-ish, I do what I call wealth stacking, and we're in the process of trademarking this. And that is taking some of these sandwich leases, these sub-2s, or these owner financing, and then changing, mutually acceptable, changing these terms or the way we hold the property with the seller. So, for example, I took a 4-year owner financing deal with principal-only payments. 1 year turned it into a 5-year deal by offering them some more money. Then I turned it into a 6-year. Then we added 15 years after that. This deal became a 21-year deal. So that's what I call wealth stacking. So it goes way beyond the 3 paydays. And then there are people in that particular group, that high-end group, that will come to us and do deals. So we might do a multi together or building like this one. And do some fun deals together because they got all these 3 payday deals happening now, presumably, and it can get really strong. And last but not least, and I'll wrap up with this on this question. We have a company called Wicked Smart Finance that came about a year and a half ago because even though we teach no money down, like I forbid them, don't put money down, don't sign personally. We were finding that even the best students who didn't want to or didn't have cash would pass up on some really cool deals. Like, hey, if I had 22 grand for this deal, I could have paid someone's arrears and captured 80 grand in equity. Well, that's stupid to walk away from. So we started Wicked Smart Finance where for our associates only, our students, we will fund the deal. We fund it. We don't ask them for a dime. They're the boots on the ground and we share 50-50. It's a really good deal. You can't do it unless you're in the community because I'd have people that would want that deal all day long, right? And they don't know what they're doing. So this way they can do the deal, not throw away the deal, partner with us, learn on the fly. So it's even more coaching, interactive,
So much good information there. If you want to see more about what Chris is talking about, go to smartrealestatecoach.com. If you want to scale quickly in this industry, you need a coach to get started, condense 20, 30 years of experience like Bill and Chris both have, and they can give you that in 1-2 years. Yeah, there's a lot of situations that you're still not going to know how to handle, but then you have that coach there to turn to when that does happen. You briefly talked about the 3 payday system. I think you said sometimes it's a 4 payday system. You said it's trademarked. I need to hear more about this because I like 3 paydays.
Yeah, I should have said this. So thank you for asking when you said, about the crash. Because when I came out of the crash, here was the frustration, especially as a realtor in the past too. If there's realtors listening, you can hustle like Bill and I talked about as a solopreneur. But I remember specifically every January going, oh, I got to do this again. Like I got to create that many deals again. Because you get paid once. And I'm not complaining about the money I made in real estate. It's treated my family very, very well. but to get paid 3 times instead of 1 is better. So when we redesigned everything, the 3 paydays are simple. When I gave you those averages, where they come from is when I deal with that, so let's say that entrepreneur that since COVID wants their own business, but they can't buy yet, they have a down payment. They're a true buyer. They just can't get a mortgage yet. So they're going to give that to me. And it's non-refundable because I want to know they're serious and they're buying. Everything about their transaction with us is like they're buying it, except they don't have title yet. So they give me a down payment. Average for us, 26, 28 grand or so in my market. Payday 2. Payday 2, second you put that deal together and that buyer starts, I'm collecting a payment from them monthly on their rent-to-own program, and I'm paying out the seller or the seller's underlying debt directly, and there's a delta. And that for us ranges like $308 for our family team, but $300 to $1,200 in the community per month per property. And we carry 50, 60 properties per month at any one time, in a portfolio at any one time. That adds up. That pays the bills. That creates buffers. That creates, for rainy days and headaches. Payday 3 is really cool because Payday 3 is all the principal pay down throughout the term of that deal. That one I turned into a 21-year deal. We cashed out of that at year 7 recently because of the principal pay down factor on Payday 3. And our profit on 183, this will get people thinking, I hope. On a $183,000 purchase 6 or 7 years ago, the Payday 3 on that was over 189 grand because of the power of the principal pay down. And then, of course, what we sold it for. So you get all that principal pay down and you get markup. That's Payday 3. I know it's a cliffhanger. We can't go into that for a half hour, but the owner financing principal only payments on the 3 payday system is 100 grand. It's a 6-figure deal every single time with certain metrics. Predictable.
I love that. You're getting the money at the down payment. You're getting the monthly cash flow and then that principal pay down, which so many people don't look at when they're just getting started. It's all about equity and cash flow, but part of that equity over a period of time, especially when you're buying larger properties, you look at that principal paid and the interest paid per month. All of that principal is money in the bank.
Yep.
And seeing that you're running, you said 50, 56 properties. What is the wicked smart model as far as property management? I know that you're diversified along several states. Do you do in-house property management, or are you just hiring local property managers where you're buying these properties?
We don't. So we have our family team has one office manager, Sue, who's been here since 2015. And why is that all it's needed? Because remember what we said earlier. These are buyers, like true buyers that need time. So guess what my conversation is? Hey, Bill, as part of the buyers meeting, of course, just I'm being a little bit light and facetious here, but hey, Bill, I'm not a landlord. You're a buyer. You can't get a mortgage yet. We're giving you a pathway to that to get you mortgage ready. In the meantime, you're treated like you're paying for things like you're a buyer and you're behaving like a buyer. You're not calling me with a roof leak. You're not calling me with a toilet clogged, and you are paying things on time. And if you don't, you will default on your option. Just like when you get financing, because we're going to show you how to do that. If you don't pay, they will take your house. So we're grooming you to get you mortgage ready, and you take care of the property. Now, do we have defaults? I said earlier, other mentors say, just throw someone in the house. Their rate is like 5% cash out, 95% default. Get like publicly, you'll see that if you research it. Ours is inverse. We between 2 and 5% default every year. That's not bad. In fact, it's probably better than the government loans. I should look that up someday. It's not a bad default rate. And why do they still default despite us being so picky? Well, life happens, right? COVID, death, divorce. And by the way, we've had all these. So I can tell you how to pivot when that does happen. But that's a really strong cash rate. So I think one of you guys said earlier, it's such a win-win-win. I dropped my license. My son, Nick, dropped his license. And I remember him saying specifically, this is so much healthier is the word he used, because 3-way win is really cool and everybody comes out happy.
Yeah, it just goes back to you helping people. That's why I really like everything you're talking about. But to stick on that same topic of the property management, the coaching, the acquisitions, you have a lot going on top of your in-house team that you're trying to manage. I can tell from speaking with you for 30 something minutes here that you're great at deal structuring. You're a great educator, great teacher. What is your daily focus? Because you can't focus on too many things at once.
Yeah. Me personally, now, just for context for the listeners, I'm 56 and my kids are, early 30s, 30 and 32, 33. So there's some really cool generational trust in talent in the company now. So my focus as the company is obviously to provide the leadership still as CEO and chairman, and also to do these interviews to continue to get the word out there. Because I got to tell you, I happen to be wearing the shirt today, but we have all kinds of cool branded shirts. But right now in the real estate industry, and you guys have a lot of people on your shows that are amazing. The problem in the industry right now, we call it bridging the gap. The problem is, and this is where I'd love to spend all my time to your question, is you have so many people. I talk to them weekly who take a course or go to a seminar or whatever. They're back to live events now. And then from that point to doing their first deal, sometimes never happens.
Mhm.
And that's the gap. And it's like a hole they fall in. And I've had people too, in particular, right now in my community, who spent $100,000 total in courses before meeting us, to the point where one of them, the spouse, is like, "You're not buying $1,000 course, let alone a coaching program." And now they're well past $1 million in 3 paydays. And all that to say, if I can keep getting the word out to do that, and hopefully make a big dent in the mentoring market, that's part of our mission as a company. At the same time, giving people options as buyers and sellers, that's a cool win-win-win there. Student, buyers, sellers, everybody wins.
Yeah, absolutely. That percentage of people that are going to go to these seminars, whether it be a Tony Robbins event or a real estate seminar for a weekend, they're able to get us very hyped up, super interested for a short period of time, and then the gap.
Yep.
And I appreciate you mentioning that is to bridge that gap, because that is hugely underestimated also, the amount of people that get excited for a short period of time and then don't take any action, or not necessarily take action, you just forget about that environment as soon as you get back to life. And
Yeah.
mentioning your kids that have been in that are in their 30s now and have been in the business, seeing how creative you have been, what does it look like with your kids now being in the 30s? Are they thinking of different ways to structure deals, different ways of thinking outside of the box to expand the business? Are they surprising you along the way here?
Yeah, constantly, because when I was by myself, there's either doubt or you get into these ruts and you make the same decisions. Whereas now they bring new ideas to the table. So what's neat is we organically kind of fell into roles. Like Nick loves helping the buyers. He helps all the students with their buyers, and that's his lane. He does it better than anyone in the community, right? So we don't step on toes. And then Zach doesn't like that and likes more like I was doing, like with working with sales. So he duplicated me in the field. So we don't get in each other's way, and we could bring all these fresh ideas still to the table, which is cool. And the team's great too. It's not just right. It's not the three of us, but the team's amazing too.
No, and that's the matter of building that business. I love it. So it's become multi generational for you, along with your kids and other people you're bringing in, and then to take it to that next level, your students. You're bringing students into your deals. You're financing some of your student deals, so your inner circle has to be super tight.
Yep, it is. The Wicked Smart community is unique. People, this is what we get for a lot of feedback. People come in the community, like we have Slack and we have Zoom, all kinds of cool things. They'll take like 3 to 5 days and go, "Oh wow, this is what you said it was." Like we're trying to hide something. It's amazing to me, and that tells me that there's a lot of crap out there still that they're seeing, that they're experiencing. They're just not getting that feel. So we're very family oriented. We do get a lot of people that say, "Wow, I'd love to do that with my family or my kids," and they come to our event to learn more. We're back to live events finally this fall, which is I'm super thankful for. I don't know when this is going to come out, but in September of 22, that'll happen. So it's a different feel. And I tell people I'm big on free. So check us out online, check us out on YouTube. We're going to give you a link for our books. You won't cost you 10 cents. I'll ship them to you. Like, I want you to do all the free stuff so that, Bill, doesn't happen what you said, where they dip their toe and go, it wasn't for me. No, find out if it's for you first, because you'll have a great experience if you decide to do it. And if you don't, cool, go find someone that you can do it with in another niche, because there's a lot of great people out there.
No, and that's awesome. You're bridging the gap. And as Stephen and I have discussed with so many people running a business, you're also creating that culture, to
Yeah,
where you're able to have that tight knit community. Chris,
for
this
sure.
is the Collecting Real Estate podcast. So they say you have to have 3 of something to make a collection. So we wrap this up with 3 questions for you. Number 1, in 5 words or less, what's the most important thing you've learned since you started collecting real estate?
There's someone else that already did it. Just hook up with them.
Success leaves clues. Love it. Love it. Number 2, what are your 1 to 2 year personal goals?
Again, time sensitive. So for context, my goal is still at my age to continue to create the income and wealth to do the things income and wealth can't buy, i.e., create experiences for people. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, with that said on the personal side, does your inner circle, your students, do you guys get involved in non-real estate related things? Do you guys take field trips, I guess you can say?
Not field trips per se because of COVID. Now we're back to the live events. But like yesterday we had our highest group we call High Six mastermind call yesterday, coincidentally. 22 of them were on. In that call for 25 minutes at the end, one of the hot seat topics was health. One of the women brought up a challenge with health without getting detail. And everyone helped with that. And then I get messages today going, hey, that was the best part of the mastermind. So it's not about doing a deal. If it was about doing a deal, I could take a student, teach them how to do a deal, and they're all set. I wish it were that easy. But why we teach the same thing? Why do some do a deal in 30 days and some 365? It's all this other stuff. So not necessarily field trips, but we teach all these other things. We call it our genius model. There's other areas. It's not just deal structure.
Fantastic. I love this. Chris has built this big family, and that's what it's all about. That's that culture. Last question for you, Chris. How can we and the listeners assist you, and how do we contact you?
Assist me by spreading the word. You can do it, and it doesn't matter if it's with me. I'm not so naive to think it's just our niche, but be in real estate and create some wealth for yourself, and get someone who can help you. You can simply go to Steven shared at the smartrealestatecoach.com, and then we created a link just for your tribe. Jotted it down here. It's simply wickedsmartbooks.com/collecting real estate. wickedsmartbooks.com/collecting real estate. You'll get the best sellers. You might get a couple of goodies in there. And it's not one of those offers that say, but I need your credit card for shipping. We'll ship it. It's our cost. It's our gift.
I love that, Chris. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us and for being such a great show on the Collecting Real Estate podcast.
You bet. Thanks, guys.